Chancellor's plans for the Royal Bank of Scotland. Now, this smoking debate that we're now going to have, health warnings on cigarettes sold in the UK are not up to the job. Who says so? The British Heart Foundation say so. Branding expert Jonathan Gabay and Professor Robert West, who's an expert on the psychology of smoking, are here now. And I mentioned Australia there earlier. What is the evidence that we're seeing there? Because they've got this plain packaging, which we as a country have resisted up until now. What do you think of the plain packaging experiment, Jonathan?
Well, it seems to have been working over in Australia, and as you say, we've resisted until now because we've been waiting to see exactly what would happen in Australia if they had this plain packaging route. The thing is, though, I think that the brands, from a branding point of view, because I'm looking at this from a branding point of view, I think that they will be coming up with other techniques now to encourage, well, not to encourage, but well, actually, the word is encourage, to encourage people to smoke their brand, their particular brand.
How do you know it's their brand if the package is a complete bland package?
Well, the thing is that even though it is as you said, it's a plain package, it still has the brand name on it. So the people, I mean, even the tobacconist has to know what's inside the package. And so I think that there is, to a degree, some type of branding there. But I think that this is going to be taking on a different sort of a look. Because what's happening is that it's really interesting to note that from 2009 on e-cigarettes, I'll tell you why I'm going to talk about e-cigarettes to do specifically with this in just a second, but e-cigarettes, the advertising spend went up from 1.7 million to 13.3 million in 2012. Now, as the professor would tell you that e-cigarettes, there's nothing being proven in terms of the health issue, but there is nicotine in e-cigarettes. Is that not correct?
Yes, there is. Yeah, that's why they smoke them. Yeah.
Yeah. Now the brands, the big brands. We're talking about BAT, Philip Morris.
They'll invest in this.
They already are.
Yeah.
And so what happens now? It's really interesting with e-cigarettes, because e-cigarettes with kids, for example, well, not kids, with young people, they are flavoured. Okay. So you'll get into that. Now, the nicotine, you have to advise me on this one, that is addictive, is it not?
Nicotine is addictive. It depends on how rapidly the nicotine is absorbed. And with the e-cigarettes at the moment, they're not as efficient as regular cigarettes in getting nicotine into the lungs, so they're not so addictive.
Professor, here's the thing. If I went in, I'm not a smoker, right? It doesn't affect me. But if I went into a shop and there was a plain packaged box of cigarettes, why would that put me off? I actually wouldn't feel any shame in that, I wouldn't think.
No,
I mean,
the reason for bringing in standard packaging is not so much to deter existing smokers who are already, very often, as you say, quite addicted and know their brand. It's to prevent tobacco industry from making their packages attractive to children, to get them started on smoking in the first place. And I did a little estimate for the British Medical Journal a few months ago, in which it became very clear that you would only have to deter 1 in 20 young people from starting up and have no effect whatsoever on existing smokers to save around 2,000 lives a year.
Interesting. As you say, targeted towards young people. We spoke to young people in Manchester over the weekend. This is what they had to say.
I don't know what I like, so
I don't think you can try to cover up what they are, really. If you're going to smoke, you know what's going into your body and what you're doing to yourself.
It wouldn't make a difference to whether I smoked or not, or if I chose a different brand.
I think if they do introduce the branding like here, like they do in Australia, I think it would prevent younger people from start smoking.
I was just wondering, role models who smoke and children look at the role models, how much of an effect do they have? Like in the news this week, we've had Jack Wilshere, a footballer who's quite young. He just thought he wouldn't smoke, but he does, and it's now been made a bit of a joke in the press. We've seen pictures in newspapers of Wayne Rooney smoking, and other footballers who've gone before, like Zidane, famously smoked. So when kids see their heroes doing that, how much of an effect does that have?
A great effect. I think you'd agree with that it would have an effect because these are the people that they're looking up to. Yeah. I want to go back to this thing because I really want to finish off this point because it's a really important point. I think you'll agree with this one. I want to go back to the e-cigarette stuff. Now, the reason I want to go back to it is that because by getting the young person to get into a ritual of cigarettes, of the actual ritual itself, it could surely lead to the next stage. Plus, you're talking about celebrities. The tobacco companies are spending a lot of money, as I said before, on getting celebrities, especially in America, to endorse the e-cigarettes, and then you get up to the next point, which is go on to cigarettes.
That remains to be seen, I think. I think it'll depend on how they're marketed, and this is one reason. This is something that's going to come up tomorrow. The European Parliament is debating what to do about e-cigarettes. Why you probably need to address the issue of marketing these things.
Yes.
But if you can get people off cigarettes onto e-cigarettes, there's a whole other debate, then I think we could see a big public health gain. But the point you make about role models, I think, is very important. But remember that, of course, that the role models are not just famous figures, your parents and the people around you. And we did a study some years ago in which we found that, for example, if you had no friends who smoked, your chances of smoking were zero.
Okay.
It makes such a difference.
And I understand all of that, but I also understand in company out there in the media world, so many people are smoking these e-things. They're there all the time, and generally there's a lot of just people who are social smokers. They don't smoke at any other time, and they believe they are there and they think this is not doing me any harm. It's not doing me any harm. Could I ask you, Professor, how much can you get away with? Because people think they can get away with it.
With conventional cigarettes, you can't get away with it at all, I'm afraid. There is no safe level. The main problem with very light smoking is heart disease. That the risk from heart disease from very light smoking is not that much different from heavy smoking. It's the way the way the system works, the sort of biology of it. With cancer risk, then it is related to your dose, how long you've been smoking, and how much you smoke. But I'm afraid it's true that there really is no safe level of smoking.
Okay, well, that was a sobering thought. Gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed.